time to talk about pronouns, I guess. Well, hello. Straight up from the beginning, I have had a cold, not COVID. So I've had a cold. My voice is probably going to sound like that, plus I probably look like it. But finally, life wins and I'm starting to feel better. So here I am, able to do things again. Also, disclaimer, my cats live with me. I have a studio. Obviously, the cats are going to be in. Yes, this is Tove. She's going to be probably going in and out of the video. She likes to just, well, both of them are quite attached to me, so they both kind of tend to be with me constantly. And last time when I tried to make a video about talking about things, they both kind of jump around, do different things, meow in the background. So get used to just having cats around. So this time, it's something that is on my mind quite often, if not all the time. And well, it's not really something I just think about when I'm alone. It's a thing that I think about when I'm with other people a lot of times, because that's when it comes up. So pronouns. And yeah, from the get-go I can say I use they, them pronouns. I am a non-binary person. Yeah, and I've been kind of going along with the pronouns that people just use for me for a long time. And I haven't really had the energy to correct people on them either, so I've just kind of gone with whatever. I come from Finland, so I'm from Finland, where the pronouns are not gendered. We just use the pronoun han for everyone. But even that one is kind of a pronoun that we don't use all the time. A lot of the time when I talk about my friends or family or whatever, like they've done something, let's say like a sentence like, oh, they went to the shop, or she went to the shop, or whatever, I'll say it went to the shop. So we use the pronoun it. That is usually for animals and things. But in Finland we use it for everyone. We don't care, like it's not that serious for us, I guess. But then yeah, obviously I live in England right now. I have to learn gendered pronouns. And sorry, Tuve's just really wanting to be in the camera, I think. She's just very needy. Very needy. Yeah, so obviously there is gendered pronouns that I had to learn. And I think my brain is just something that like pronouns sometimes don't stick to. But not in a way that I mean to misgender people. It's more that my brain just wasn't used to them for 18 years. So I still sometimes go, yeah, my brother did this, she's just like this kind of person. And then I go, oh wait, no, sorry, he is this kind of person. Or like with my cats, I just call my cats he all the time in the sentences, like, oh, he was just climbing up the tree, I mean she. So I'll just like correct myself as I go along because I realize that I've messed up. That's Juno. Juno, you can come on the bed too if you really need to. So yeah, I do kind of mess up, and that's what I expect from other people as well. So if you do mess up, that you then would correct yourself. But I do find it odd that people don't do that. Like, it's so easy to do, why can't you do it? But yeah, there is a lot of things regarding that people kind of don't understand. And if you've been brought up in a society where you only use he or she, that you don't know about they them, then maybe it is harder to learn. And also, so I totally understand that it is harder to learn new things. And also, if you've been using a pronoun for someone for years, for example, it is hard to break out of that habit. But then when is the limit when you kind of when does the kind of understanding someone doing that ends? Like, how long do you let people just kind of try until you kind of give up on them? For me, I just haven't had the energy to constantly correct people, and I haven't been great at that at all in general. Like, I just can't be bothered. I have very low energy all the time anyway, so a lot of times I have to pick the battles of like, what do I put my energy in? Do I have this long conversation with someone teaching them about gender and what pronouns to use and things like that? Or do I don't know, make food for myself? Like, it's sometimes I'm very low on energy and I have to pick my battles. And especially if I feel like the environment isn't necessarily comfortable for me or safe for me, or I don't really feel like explaining something really basic to someone, because that's how it feels to me a lot of times, because obviously I've been around this stuff for a long time. I've thought about gender and things like that, because it is something I've kind of had to think about, because I'm not part of, that was Juno. They just love to be part of it. So yeah, it's because I've had to think about it, I've had to learn about it, I've had to read about it, because it is about me, and I've had to kind of figure out myself and feel comfortable. It comes more naturally to me, but for people who never have to think about this, who feel comfortable with the gender that they've been assigned at birth, it is harder to kind of find the motivation, maybe because it doesn't impact them. I don't know. It's hard to talk about what these people feel, because I'm not those people. But I think for me, from experience, if it's something that isn't in my radar or something that isn't impacting me, it does take effort a little bit to learn, and you might feel a bit silly or ashamed or not sure what you're supposed to do. But the thing is, it's better to try than not at all, or ask if you're not sure. And the thing that I've kind of thought myself is, it's always safer to go by they them pronouns for everyone until you know someone's pronouns, because they them will include everyone, and once you know their pronouns, then you can start using pronouns whatever they want, and then it's much easier. But I think for a lot of people it's just an automatic. If someone's a bit more feminine, they are a she, and if someone's a bit more masculine, that's a man, it's a he. But then that's not always the case, and it really doesn't, like, it basically what it is that, like, I know it's hard to start doing something with the snap of your fingers. You have to practice it. So I think I've talked about this before, how habits take 30 days to form, so you have to kind of keep at it before you can learn it. And yeah, I think this was a subject that I haven't really talked about much, and I don't really talk about much. I usually talk about this maybe with people who are queer or trans and whatever, because it is something that we all in that community kind of know about a bit more, so the conversations are a little bit more in depth, and it's a bit more comfortable to talk about, because you know already that those people know about it, you don't have to explain the whole thing to them. But yeah, I think it just kind of, I read something on a kind of a news thing I subscribe to called Them. I read about this thing in Canada where there was a case and someone sued their previous employment for misgendering them, and the Canada court did put a law in place, or I guess based on this, it has become illegal to misgender people. So that is, because it is harmful, it can be very, very harmful if someone's on purpose continuously misgendering someone. That can be so harmful for that person. For example, in the UK, there has been a few cases that police has taken on, well, has been at least reported, and police have taken some kind of action or tried to, where people have been misgendered. One was a journalist in some tweets, and that was eventually dropped. But it was also not just misgendering, it's the kind of intent behind the whole tweet was kind of harmful. And then there was a kid that was being misgendered in school, and this kid was depressed due to this. So it was brought up to police and it was resolved in some way. because it's a private matter. There isn't a lot of information on this, but there has been cases where this has been a hate crime or harassment, where people aren't being misgendered properly, and this is something you can bring up at work, that it can be, again, it can be a hate crime, or it can be a harassment thing. So if people are misgendering you continuously, this can be brought up to police. A lot of people don't feel safe to do so, or like in places of work, people don't feel safe to bring stuff like this necessarily, because they want to keep the environment friendly for them, and it can be very difficult to bring up. It might feel really uncomfortable, and a lot of times being the person to educate others is really hard and taxing for you. It's kind of this labor that shouldn't be something you need to do at work, that you're already being paid to do your work at work. You shouldn't be having to put stuff on top of that. That isn't your job to do. I mean, I understand that obviously you have to kind of explain sometimes when it's something that people are not familiar with. You can say, oh, by the way, my pronouns are this and this. This is stuff you can read about it. But I think having to say that several times again and again gets very laborious. People really don't understand, the harm that this can bring to people. Like I said, it can bring depression and anxiety. When someone is constantly misgendered, it reminds them of this uncomfortable place they've had to be in for a long, long time before they felt comfortable enough to come out and say, oh, that's actually not my gender. It can bring up a lot of past, different situations from the past that make them feel not so great. So it's just, there's a lot of stuff. It's not just the feeling that you give in that moment to someone, that like, if your pronouns are she, her, and I call you he, him constantly, it doesn't feel right to you. I'm sure it doesn't feel right to you. Or if you're he, him, and someone goes she, her, I bet you feel uncomfortable with that and you're gonna correct them. But imagine having to do that constantly with every interaction that you have. It is exhausting, and it does start to feel like this isn't just a word. This is something that the person doesn't see me who I am. Like, you're seeing me as someone else. I'm not the person that you're seeing me as, and that feels so hurtful. It's a human thing to want to be seen, and seen as you are, and being accepted as you are. And if people are constantly treating you as something else, it's just such a horrible feeling. To me, it hasn't been as big of a deal, I guess, because I just don't care a lot of times. Like, to me, it's such a in this way, I wish the language was same as in Finland, that there was just one gender for everyone. But I know that there are people who the pronoun that they use is very kind of gender affirming. So all the words that people use about them is very gender affirming. I can't really talk much about other people's experiences, but I have been with people in the past where me just using the word boyfriend or he, him, or they, them, or my partner has been lifting them up in some ways, or like made them feel much more comfortable than if I would have used the words girlfriend or like whatever, she, her, whatever. And it's just such a small change for me to start using those gender confirming words, but a huge thing for them. So why wouldn't I want to do that? And I kind of wish other people saw it the same way. Because every time someone does use my correct pronouns, there is a little joy inside with me. Like, I feel like, oh, they get me. Oh, I'm accepted, or I'm being seen. It's validating. And when people use the incorrect ones, that's when it chips away at me. It isn't like, it doesn't ruin my day. It doesn't affect me that much, but that's my personal journey. That it doesn't affect and ruin my day that way. It just chips away at me. And it depends on, let's say I'll have 5 different interactions, and all of those are someone, let's say I'll go to the shop and get food, and someone calls me a lady when I'm not a lady. it won't ruin my day, but it does chip away at me, like, oh, that's uncomfortable. But it's also a stranger, I'm not going to put that much weight on it. Let's say at work I have a meeting and people keep saying she, her, this, that, and every time it just, again, not going to ruin my day, but it just feels uncomfortable for me, and it makes me feel like this environment isn't safe for me. I'm not accepted in this environment, and I try not to think about it too much because then it will ruin my day. So I think that's why I haven't paid attention too much to it, and I've just kind of let it go because I haven't wanted to make a big deal and let it ruin my day. But then, reading about this thing in Canada that it's illegal, like this shouldn't be happening, it makes me feel hopeful that like when things are taken more seriously and when there's bigger headlines like this, people read into it and look into it, and they realize that it is a bit bigger deal than just a word. There's literally a dog barking every time I talk. If you hear the dog barking, great. I think for me, I don't expect people to change overnight. I don't expect someone to get it right away. Like I said, it takes time to get into that habit of using different pronouns. But to me, I value it a lot when people are kind of like at least trying. I had something happen at work where someone misgendered me, but then they learned that I had different pronouns, and they came back to me later and said, oh, I'm sorry, I realized your pronouns are these, they, them, I should be using those, I'm sorry that I misgendered you, I'll remember that in the future. And it made me feel so great. Like, it really, like, and you don't have to even do that. Even if you just go, if you know someone's pronouns are something different and you go, let's say he, him, in a meeting, like you go, oh, he did this, oh, and then you, like in that, while you're finishing that sentence, you realize, oh, there's she. I was like, oh, sorry, she. Even like if it comes from a genuine place, I think that's fine. If you make it into a big deal, it again makes it a little bit uncomfortable. So I would prefer people just kind of getting on with it. Or even if it's really hard for you to start using them, use their name for that. Like, you can always say, oh, they did this, or you can use they, them all the time. If that's easier. It's just these little changes, it'll make it better, and it'll make it more normal. And the more we use these things and you get more comfortable with these things, everyone will. But yeah, the little things make it easier for everyone. Day by day, if everyone starts using, like doing these little things, using the correct pronouns for people or asking pronouns, or even if you meet someone new, you don't have to ask theirs. If you feel uncomfortable asking theirs, you can always go, oh, mine, like when you introduce yourself, you go, hey, I'm Ellie, I use they, them pronouns, by the way. Or if your pronouns are she, her, you could just go like, hey, my name is, I don't know, Catherine, and my pronouns are she, her. What's your name? What's your pronouns? Like, it's much easier to ask when you pronounce, like, say yours first. Or even if you don't really know someone's pronouns, if it's like a date or casual, you know their Instagram, or they are someone that you kind of know from Instagram or some social platform. A lot of times now, social platforms have an option to put the pronouns in there. So it's good to check that if you feel unsure, that you can't really ask. But I think it's always, like, I'll feel much more comfortable hearing people ask rather than not. And I think you have to, again, be in those uncomfortable places for now until we do get to the point when it's not so uncomfortable anymore and it's the norm. It takes time to change, but I think it's time to change that. It's just getting a little bit boring that people can't pick these things up, to be honest. Sorry, other people who don't know how to do this, but yeah. And I just if you want to read about this, I have a blog post. You can go and check that out. It's basically the same stuff that I'm saying here, pretty much. I just like to do this in different platforms so that people can either read or listen if you rather do that. But yeah, I also want to plug a podcast that has I think there's a few episodes now actually about transness. So that's another topic that I do write about in the blog post, so if you want to check that out. But the podcast is called Rainbow Cast Media. This is so, like, a little bit biased for me to plug them, because I do know the people in it. But yeah, go check that out. They have a recent episode called All Things Trans. So if you want to hear some trans stories of like different kind of journeys that people have had, go listen to that. I really recommend it. It was really good. But yeah, and then another thing I wanted to plug was this artist that I found through the same newspaper called Them. That's another thing I want to actually plug. Them is great. I'll put links down below that how you can find them. But it's a great news kind of letter thing. Shows up in my email inbox. I can't remember even how often, but every now and then. But there's really great stories there and things recommended. So there was an artist recommended called Habit Hands, I think. Hands of Habit. No, I've forgotten. Habit Hands? Habit Hands. I think it was Habit Hands. It's a non-binary artist, and they've made a new album that I do recommend to go and listen to. I'll put the link below. But yeah, and the story as well in them was great. You can just find on them website. It was really interesting and really beautiful pictures. I really like those as well. So I definitely recommend those just to have a look. Yeah, and if you're someone who sees me in everyday life, and you didn't know all about this and you just stumbled upon this or something, I'm happy to talk about this stuff if you bring these things up, or you can ask me questions here or wherever. I really don't mind. I think, yeah, it's time to talk about it a bit more. I think that's it for now. Yeah, be good to yourself and others.